Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. So in this video we're gonna do some odd one out questions. Odd one out के questions पिछले 3 से 4 साल में कैट में हर बार आ रहे हैं एंड ये questions थोड़े से ट्रिकी हो सकते हैं बिकॉज जो options होते हैं वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा क्लोज होते हैं. So मुश्किल हो सकता है इन्हें solve करना, but if you do it correctly, if you follow the strategy correctly and if you keep practicing, you will be able to do it correctly. So let's start our today's video. So odd one out का question जब एग्जाम में आता है, so it comes in this way that 5 sentences related to a topic are given below. 4 of them can be put together to form a meaningful and coherent short paragraph. Identify the odd one out. So odd one out के question जब भी solve करेंगे ना, तो आपको ये देखना है, ये आइडेंटिफाई करना है कि किसी दो सेंटेंसेस में कोई लिंक है या दो सेंटेंसेस अगर कनेक्टेड हैं तो वो किस तरह से कनेक्टेड है, और अगर वो कनेक्टेड है तो उन दोनों में से कोई भी ऑड वन आउट सेंटेंस नहीं होगा. सो इसी स्ट्रैटेजी के साथ हम अपने पहले क्वेश्चन या पहले ऑड वन आउट पे आते हैं. लेट्स स्टार्ट. ट्रांसलेटर्स आर लाइक बम्बल बीज. सो यहाँ पे ट्रांसलेटर्स और बम्बल बीज को ऑथर कंपेयर कर रहा है. Though long since scientifically disapproved, this factoid is still routinely jotted out. Jotted out means it's still believed, it's still being used. So यहाँ पे किसी factoid की बात हो रही है, किसी fact की बात हो रही है. So we don't really have an idea what the sentence or what the paragraph is going to be about. So let's keep reading. Similar pronouncements about the impossibility of translation have dodged practitioners since Leonardo Brunetti's Impressionate Rapta, published in 1424. Bees, unaware of these deliberations, have continued to flit from flower to flower, and translators continue to translate. So again here the author is comparing bees to translators, and in the first sentence itself translators were compared to bumblebees. So these two sentences are definitely connected and they are not going to be anyone from the odd one out sentences. In 1934, the French entomologist Auguste Magnum pronounced the flight of the bumblebees to be aerodynamically impossible. So यहाँ पे एक pronouncement की बात हो रही है that he believed that the bumblebees flight is impossible. Now, similar pronouncements about the impossibility of translation have dodged practitioners. So यहाँ पे भी हम ट्रांसलेटर्स को और बम्बलबीज को ही कंपेयर कर रहे हैं कि इस सेंटेंस में ही इज टेलिंग अस दैट it was pronounced that the flight of bumblebees is impossible, and similar pronouncements about the impossibility of translation was given. So all these sentences are connected. They are giving us the same idea. They are related to the same idea. But the only sentence which is a bit different is option 2. It is not going any way with the rest of the paragraph. So this is going to be our odd one out sentence. Second question पे आते हैं. Although we are born with the gift of language, research shows that we are surprisingly unskilled when it comes to communicating with others. So in this sentence we are kind of talking about communication and how we are kind of unskilled with it. We must carefully orchestrate our speech if we want to achieve our goals and bring our dreams to fruition. So यहाँ पे ये पिछले सेंटेंस से थोड़ा सा अलग है because here we are talking about speech and in the first sentence we were talking about communication. They are a bit different. So let's read the rest of the sentences. We often choose our words without thought, oblivious of the emotional effects they can have on others. Now this is a little bit about communication only, but let's read the rest of the sentences. We talk more than we need to, ignoring the effect we are having on those listening to us. The third and fourth sentence are connected. They are giving us the same idea that we don't really care about, we don't really put much effort into thinking that what our words can put effect on others. And this both the sentences are talking about this only. So these are definitely not our odd one out sentences. We listen poorly without realizing it, and we often fail to pay attention to the subtle meanings conveyed by facial expressions, body gestures, and the tone and the candor of our voice. Again, ये सेंटेंस भी कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में बात कर रहा है एंड हमारी अनस्किल्स के बारे में बात कर रहा है कि हम कितने अनस्किल्ड हैं कि हम समझ नहीं पाते, हम रियलाइज नहीं कर पाते चीज़ें. और जो फर्स्ट सेंटेंस था उसमें भी ऑथर ने यही चीज कही थी, that we are surprisingly unskilled when it comes to communicating with others. So all these sentences, 1, 3, 4th and 5th, are sharing the same idea, and the only sentence which is different from the rest of the sentences, which is odd one out, is option 2. Let's come to the third question. Over the past fortnight, one of its finest champions managed to pull off a similar impression. Wimbledon's greatest illusion is the sense of timelessness it evokes. Now, Wimbledon is a tennis tournament, and we're talking about the timelessness of this Wimbledon tournament. So, let's read the rest of the paragraph. Let's read rest of the sentences. At 35 years and 340 days, Roger Federer became the oldest man to win the singles title in the Open era, a full 14 years after he first claimed the title as a scruffy, pony-tailed upstart. So यहाँ पे हम रॉजर फेडरर की बात कर रहे हैं. He is a very famous tennis player, and we are talking about that he now is the oldest man to win a singles title. And we're here also talking about timelessness, which was first mentioned in the second sentence. So we can say that these two sentences are connected because this is introduction, and now this is sharing the same idea. It is explaining on the same idea. So let's see the rest of the sentences. Once he had survived the opening week, the second week witnessed the range of a rested Federer's genius. यहाँ पे भी हम रॉजर फेडरर की ही बात कर रहे हैं, बट जो एक हल्का सा डिफरेंस है वो ये है कि यहाँ पे टाइमलेसनेस की कोई बात नहीं हो रही. But let's see the rest of the sentences and see if it is connected to any other sentence. Given that his method isn't reliant on explosive athleticism or muscular ball striking, both vulnerable to decay, there is cause to believe that Federer will continue to enchant for a while longer. So here again we are talking about the timelessness of Roger Federer, that how he became the oldest man to win the singles title, and now he is caused to believe that Federer will continue to enchant for a while longer. So it is also explaining on the same idea of timelessness. And when we come to the first sentence, we see that over the past fortnight, one of its finest champions managed to pull off a similar impression. So this sentence is kind of an introduction to the third sentence, and it is connecting second and third sentence, and the sequence, if we try to find out the sequence, it will be 2, 1, 3, 5, and 4, which is not talking about timelessness at all, which is the main idea of our paragraph, is going to be an odd one out. Fourth question पे आते हैं. Talk was the most common way for enslaved men and women to subvert the rules of their bondage to gain more agency, and they were supposed to have. Now, subvert means to kind of fight, to kind of undermine something, to kind of not follow something. So, talk was the most common way. Now, here we're talking about enslaved men and women, we're talking about slavery, and how they kind of broke the rules of their bondage by talking. Even in conditions of extreme violence and unfreedom, their words remained ubiquitous, ephemeral, irrepressible, and potentially transgressive. So again, we're talking about slavery, and even in the extreme violence and unfreedom, their words remained free. So this is also kind of explaining on the same idea which was talked about in the first sentence. Third sentence पे आते हैं. Slaves came from societies in which oaths, orations, and invocations carried great potency, both between people and as a connection to the all-powerful spirit world. So in this sentence, we're talking about slavery, we're talking about speech, but we're not talking about freedom, which was the main idea of the first two sentences. Now let's see if the other two sentences are connected to the third sentence or not. Freedom of speech and the power to silence may have been preeminent markers of white liberty in colonies, but at the same time, slavery depended on dialogue. Slaves could never be completely neutral. Now, again, this sentence contains slavery and freedom, which was the main idea of the first two sentences. So this is also not an odd one out sentence. Slave owners obsessed over slave talk, though they could never control it, yet feared its power to bind and inspire, for as everyone knew, oaths, whispers, and secret conversations spread conspiracy and revolt. Now, conspiracy and revolt is related to freedom, and we're talking about slavery here, we're talking about freedom, we're talking about speech, we're talking about talks. So, this is also an extension to the same idea that we talked about earlier. So the only sentence which is a different is third sentence because it is not at all talking about freedom. So this is going to be an odd one out sentence. Now let's come to the fifth question. Stat signaled something measurable, while Matic advertised free labor and John above all indicated control. So here we're talking about Stat, Matic and John. Let's continue reading the paragraph. Let's continue reading the sentences. It was a totem of high modernism. Totem means a symbol. So it was a symbol of high modernism, the intellectual and cultural mode that decreed no process or phenomenon was too complex to be grasped, managed, and optimized. Like the heraldic shields of ancient knights, these morphemes were painted onto the names of scientific technologies to proclaim one's history and achievements to friends and enemies alike. Now, morphemes means that it's a part of a word which cannot be further divided. And morphemes are, for example, stat, matic, tron. These are all morphemes. So we can say that first and third sentence are connected because it's talking about the same thing. The historian Robert Proctor at Stanford University calls the suffix "tron" along with matic and stat embodied symbols. Now here we're talking about these three words which were continuously talked about in the first sentence, and we are saying that these are embodied symbols. So and in the third sentence we were saying that they are painted on the names of scientific technologies to proclaim one's history and achievements. So we can kind of believe that these are embodied symbols, and third and fourth sentence is also connected. Fifth sentence we are there. To gain the suffix, which is start, matic, and tron, was to acquire a proud and optimistic emblem of the electronic and atomic age. So all these sentences are, saying that they are in optimistic emblem, they are embodied symbols, that they proclaim one's history and achievements. But in the second sentence, they're talking that it's a symbol of high modernism, which is a slightly different idea from the rest of the sentences. So this is going to be our odd one out sentence. So with this we come to an end of our today's video. I hope you liked it. Best of luck and keep solving more and more questions. And if you have any query related to MBA prep, related to questions, you can mail us or you can DM us on Instagram. And if you want to join our Telegram channel, the link is provided in the description box. Thank you.